Um, yeah, okay, I guess I'll get the intro done. So, welcome back to the third episode of the podcast. No, you know what? That's crap. That's not even got the title in it. I'll try it again.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to the third episode of the KinoCast. I'm Patryk, and I'm joined here with my friends Alvaro and Alejandro. Today we have a guest with us, and it's the amazing Cornish indie filmmaker, Brett Harvey. And if you've never heard of him, he made The Weekend Retreat and Brown Willie, both fantastic films and should be checked out, which you can find on Vimeo. A little bit of a plug there as well. Thanks for joining us today, Brett.
Hello. Oh, thanks for having me.
There's no worries. We can get we'll get anyone. So
Okay.
This is already off to a bad start.
Family can approach me and say,
I call it the opposite.
So yeah, Brett, you directed a film that we've all watched, which is Brown Willie. And just to give a brief synopsis, that was a film made in 2016, and it's about two best friends who climb Cornwall's highest peak on a stag do.
Yes, that's right.
Cool. Yeah, so obviously I know you through being local and being a local figure of filmmaking. And again, on top of you being known for this film, you also have a film competition on in the area I live. Which is, if you want to explain.
So we run a film competition. It's called the Rough Cut 60-second Film Challenge, and it's open to everybody at the moment. And the challenge is to make a 60-second film, and it has to link with the theme of strings. But we're really open to how people want to interpret that. And that's all the rules, basically. It's completely free to enter, and there's cash prizes to be won. And no strings attached. Boom, boom.
Fantastic.
It's too good to be true. Before I carry on to questions about the film, which will rotate those questions, just quickly, what inspired you to kind of flagship a film competition in Cornwall?
It dates back to when I was at college making films years and years ago. There weren't many opportunities to screen short films. So a group of us got together and did a film night in the upstairs of a local pub. And it kind of just sort of spiraled from there. And then we kind of moved into the YouTube age, so it wasn't as sort of pertinent to get your films screened because you could put them online or whatever. So we just started coming up with little competitions, and then the competitions kind of died out because they were so much work, and then we partnered with Falmouth University, and they were really keen for us to bring it back. So we just sort of did. It's just a bit of fun, to be honest, and it's kind of nice to give people a reason to make stuff. It's all about generating new work, and we try and make it as accessible as possible, so you don't necessarily have to be an experienced filmmaker. So we get a lot of first-time filmmakers or young people's filmmaking groups, and it's just really good fun. It's just a really nice thing to be involved with.
Sounds like fun, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really admirable as well to bring filmmaking, introducing it to something like Cornwall. And for those of you who've never heard of Cornwall, which is going to be everyone that listens to this outside of like two friends, it's a little backwater county in England, in the southwest. Nothing happens there, so events like this are a godsend because people who want to kind of become filmmakers are able to have a kind of outlet, a reason, and some motivation to get out there and do that, which is great.
Yeah, and I think people think that it's like a con or something, but it's not. If you enter the competition, and we'll have a sort of team of judges, and there's an audience award on the night. The first prize is £500, and it is literally £500. There's no strings attached to that prize. You just get given some money.
Is it free to participate? Yeah.
It's free to participate, and if your film gets selected, you get to come to the screening in beautiful cinema in Truro for free as well. And yeah, it's just a great event.
Wow.
That is my favourite cinema.
This is pretty
I
cool.
want to move to the UK. So,
Well, anyone can enter all around the globe.
oh, really?
Yeah. And it's open to anyone with no restriction on that, no restriction on age. We just want to see stuff. The further afield it comes in, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
So you, one just has to upload their picture. I mean,
So all the details are on filmfreeway.com.
Okay.
It's called the Rough Cut 60-second Film Competition, and you just have to fill out register your film on Film Freeway, and then just enter. Yeah, completely free. And there's a prize for under 16s. so a young person's prize, and then there's the main competition for everyone else. And we do stupid prizes on the night, and yeah, it's a blast.
Okay. So moving on briskly. Now that we've got our first corporate endorsement out the way, completely sold out and jumped the shark. Alvaro, do you have any questions about the movie that we watched?
Oh, about the movie that we watched. Yeah, I
ahead.
do have one. Oh, okay, thanks, Alvaro. One thing that I was wondering while watching the film is that it's pretty noticeable that the film, the plot and the story and how it advances, it feels a lot like something that one of your friends would tell you happened to them. So my question is, were there any experiences, real-life experiences you had, which inspired you to make the film, or on which you decided to base this film on?
Yes, so the idea for the film came from, I went on my friend's stag do, and about an hour or two into the evening, it was all people that I'd gone to school with, and within a couple of hours, everybody reverted to the person they were at school, and it was just this weird thing that happened where you go, we all became who we were, and it was, I suddenly sort of started asking the question of, well, do we ever really change, or are we same?
Oh, sorry, Brett.
Yeah, I think
I cut out.
with your microphone, yeah, it's cutting out a little bit. So
Yeah, just for a few seconds. If you
No,
could just
no.
repeat the last part of the answer.
Yeah, so it kind of that experience for me raised the question of, do we really change as people, or are we the people we were when we went to school? And then in fleshing out the sort of script and the things that happen to the characters, lots and lots of those events in the film are sort of based on things that have either happened to myself, Sai, my brother who produced the film and plays Pete in the film, or people that we know, some of which we're prepared to reveal, and some of which we're not prepared to reveal. But there's the one that I can say for people that have seen the film is there's a particularly gruesome, somebody has an injury that's quite graphic later on in the film.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That is 100% based on a true story.
Oh shit! Oh.
Yeah.
Lovely.
And what they do with the injury, I'm trying to be vague just in case people haven't seen it, but what they do with the injury to try and fix it, shall we say, that is also 100% true and happened to a
really?
mate of mine.
Oh
Yeah.
shit!
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly.
Oof.
And things like, so the characters in the film they drink from a river on Bodmin Moor and they get poisoned by the water.
Oh, don't tell me that's
And that is 100% based on. Not only is that based on a true story, it's literally that river as well.
Oh, okay. Now that is a lot more interesting. Yeah.
I just wanted to say quickly, because I'm bad at social cues and I started to cut in when you say that. Can you just say the "and" again, because it makes it easier to cut? Honestly, as you were saying "and," I was like, okay, Alvaro, and then yeah.
At the beginning of the second story. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You know he goes to. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh my god. Okay, go.
And.
Okay, that's great. That's all I need to edit this. So.
I'm a
Thank you.
filmmaker. I understand those requests.
Yeah, I was
people
about
do
to
weird
say,
things like that all the time.
That's the college part of Patryk. What you guys call college over there?
Always thinking of the edit. Always thinking of the edit.
Exactly. So one step ahead, but also disorganized. So, Alvaro.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions about Brown Willie?
Brown Willie. Any of the. Well, you just said the guy who plays Thomas, right? It's your
Pete. Simon, my brother
Pete,
Si
sorry.
plays Pete. And the other guy is an actor called Ben Dyson, who we've worked with before.
So
He plays
he's
Michael.
yeah, you guys are friends, right? I imagine. In this kind
Yeah. So Ben and I had been we toured in a theatre show together before, and then Ben and Si have worked together quite a lot. But because it's a low budget film, that wasn't the original casting. It was weirdly, Cy was going to play the character of Michael, and somebody else was going to play Pete originally.
Oh.
And then what you learn when you make stuff for basically no money is plans very soon go out the window. So we were actually going to shoot this in August 2014, and we got right up to 2 weeks before the shoot, and then it fell apart right at the last second. The locations fell through, something else went wrong, and then we just couldn't do the shoot. And the actor that we had scheduled in to play Pete basically couldn't commit to the new shooting dates. So then that's when Cy swapped to playing Pete. Then we had somebody else cast as Michael, and then they couldn't do it. And then we sort of had a brainwave and we're like, oh, what about Ben? But it's that low budget scrabbling around filmmaking thing of actually Ben turned out to be the perfect person to play the part, and everything kind of happens for a reason.
Ben was a really good performer, can I just say? Like, he was a really good.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Really good.
And he was so nice to work with as well. And when I was writing the script, there's a part where the character of Michael, the characters have a really heavy night of drinking and then take drugs while they're out on the moor, which you shouldn't do, kids. They take drugs when they're out on the moor, and then when they wake up the next day, Michael, so Ben's character, wakes up completely naked in the middle of nowhere. But in the script I'd written, he wakes up in his pants, like in his underpants. And then
what happened in between?
Well, we were going through drafts of the script, and Cy and I were talking about it, and we sort of were like, it's funnier if he's naked, but if we put he's naked in the script, we'll put off any actor doing it, because we were shooting in March, and Bodmin Moor is like pretty sort of cold and quite sheer. The wind cuts through. So we sort of knew we were going to try and get that character naked, but we didn't want to put it in the script. And then when we did a first read through with Ben, he sort of turned to me and went, "Do you think he should be naked? Do you think that's funnier?" And I was like, "You've got the job. You're in."
That's some cold Stanley Kubrick
Yeah,
shit right there for the actor.
That's a good sign.
What you can't see in the film is there's two people on the crew with massive double duvets off shot every time he's naked. So as soon as we yell cut, they'd run in and bundle in the duvets. But he was fine with it. He was, if anything, he was quite keen to do it.
Don't tell me that was also like actual contaminated water from a real dead animal they were drinking too.
Oh.
It's more than we can handle.
Method acting.
You know, like Cy and Ben were very sort of roughy-tufty. They were up for being out in the cold and scrabbling around in the dirt. But that was the one thing they were like, can we be really careful about what we're drinking? So any shots where they're drinking, there's actually a massive bowl of sort of fresh mineral water.
Do you think there was personal experience in that fear?
Well, it was Cy's sister-in-law that got poisoned, so I think he saw it relatively firsthand.
Jesus Christ, English countryside sounds fun. Really fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you're out there, you're in the elements, you've got to make it work.
So
it sounds... Okay, do you want to go? Because if you want to go, I'll give you...
I wanted to go, but you were like cutting in. You know, do you think you not be rude? I swear you people have no manners. So a bit of casual racism.
Just go.
Just let it pass. Go ahead. Yeah.
I have.
It's one too many. Just go.
I have. Excuse me, Brett. I have two questions.
Okay.
About the film. So, firstly, the film has fantastic cinematography and camera work, and it also has an amazing soundtrack.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, no, these are things that I really genuinely enjoyed about it, and obviously you say it's a low budget movie, but even within movie making terms, low budget isn't like, like 50 quid, it's a bit more. So how expensive was it to even make this movie, and what camera did you use?
I wanted to ask
that. Okay, so we've toured the film around and done lots of screenings and Q&As, and the question of budget comes up, and we find if you just tell people what the budget is, it sort of doesn't make sense. So you kind of have to put the budget in context. So if this sounds pre-rehearsed, it's because I've had a lot of practice at it. So to put the budget in context, if you were going to make something like, let's think of like a big blockbuster that's out at the moment. Well, Solo, a Star Wars story, was estimated $250 million.
Yep.
And then if you come over to the UK, budgets drop significantly from there. The touchstone, the one I always go to, is Shaun of the Dead. I think roughly had a budget of $4 million, which is pretty astonishing because it's an amazing film. But $4 million
pretty low. Jesus Christ.
I think that's roughly Shaun of the Dead territory. And then if you come down the budgets, something like there's the Shane Meadows film, This Is England. I think that was made for about $1 million.
Dead Man Shoots, surprisingly, was made for like 700,000.
Yeah, so anything under $1 million, you're into sort of what they call low budget territory. So Dead Man Shoots about 700,000, then you're $500,000, and then you keep coming down, and then I think like $100,000 is what they call a micro budget film. So you get films like, there was that great Riz Ahmed film Shifty, I think was $100,000 or $150,000. I think anything below that you get into what they class as sort of technically no budget, and then anything below a certain number, insurance companies just laugh at you. So Si and I made a film a few years ago and phoned up to get the proper insurance, and the person on the phone was going, "You're going to make a film for what?" They couldn't work out what insurance we needed because the budget was quote unquote so low. But Brown Willie was made for I think about 15 grand, 12 to 15 grand.
Oh my god.
So if I say that outright, that sounds like a lot of money, but when you put it in the context of other films and budgets, it's kind of nothing. And what that meant was we could shoot on location for about 10 days. So we had to shoot it all in 10 days. So it's really, really sort of fast and rough and ready. And then to answer your other question, it's all shot on a Panasonic GH4.
It looks good. It looks really fantastic. How was the camera a rental, or do you own it?
It's just a little DSLR. We did lots and lots of camera tests, but all of that is credit to the director of photography, a guy called Adam Leahy, who's a genius. And basically he's doing a PhD specializing in landscape photography, cinematography. I think his thesis was about finding rapture in nature. And I've known Adam for years. We'd never worked together before. And then the way I like to work with a director of photography is I just gave him the script. I had very fixed ideas about how I wanted to shoot it, but I just gave him the script and didn't tell him any of that, and just said, react to the script, let me know what you think, sort of thing. And the two things that I was kind of open to most things, but the two things I wanted to do was I wanted it to be in black and white. That was a very conscious decision. Yeah. And I wanted it to be 2:35:1 aspect ratio, so a slightly wider aspect ratio to sort of convey the landscape. And Adam read the script and was like really liked it, really got what it was about, and had loads of great ideas. But basically the first two things he said to me was, listen, this is a bit radical, but have you thought about shooting it in black and white? And I was like, yes. And he was like, also, if we're out on the moor, we should make it look epic, so we should do it 2:35:1 aspect ratio.
Anamorphic,
like, marry me now. But he just has this uncanny ability of, we'd just get to a location on the moor, and I'd be working with the actors, and then he'd just sort of tap you on the shoulder and go, "Hey man, what do you think of this?" And you'd look through the camera and go, "How did you do that? How did you make it look like that?" And he was great. We'd be about to roll on a shot, and then he'd go, "Just give me 30 seconds," and you'd wait 30 seconds, and it would just be for the cloud to cover up a little bit of the sun or something, so the light would just change as we'd start rolling. Wow. He's a genius.
Yeah. Pretty good art over there going on with the pictures in your movie. I wanted to ask you.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, go on.
I wanted to ask you if, now, given the budget, I imagine it wasn't. I thought it was made on film for just a second.
Oh wow! Well, I'll tell Adam that. He'll love that.
Because, not only because of I don't know if it was a color correction or just the black and white from the camera, but it had this very big, I don't know how you'd call it. It's
natural
definition, HDR, whatever. I don't know. Like the shadows are pretty strong, and I thought I had seen grain. over there. Maybe it was had it post, or maybe I just imagined it. Maybe
We
maybe
did
it was the
add
ISO.
a tiny bit of grain in post.
Yeah,
But it was that
That's-
thing of, if you make something in black and white, you don't just go and take the colours out. There is actually still a post
Yeah.
sort of
Oh yeah.
colour correction to do. And we worked with a guy called Michael Todd, who's a local guy in Cornwall. And he did all of our sort of colour grade, and there's lots and lots of little clever sort of things to bring out the texture in the rock. So
Yep.
I was kind of all about making the landscape look as kind of desolate as possible. Adam's thing mostly was bringing out the clouds in shots, the drama in the clouds behind them. And I wanted the blacks to be, we did kind of push it to make it look as much like film as possible, you know, push the blacks as dark as possible and give it a real, anything to make it cinematic and epic.
it's
It looks
the anamorphic compared to the black and white just gives it this very voyage, as in like a trip, or
Yeah.
Lawrence of Arabia journey. I mean, with juxtaposed with this really gritty and palpable, serious, because it has comedy, but at the same time it's got serious themes going on with the story. So I think the black and white helps a lot with that.
Oh, cool. Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, it was... The thing with the script was the sort of earlier drafts were a bit sillier and a bit more flippant, and then the thing about making a low-budget indie feature is you're going to live with these characters for... I mean, this film took 3.5 years to make, so you sort of go... You can't just make it... I didn't feel like I could just make a kind of brainless comedy. It felt like it had to be about something, because otherwise it's 3.5 years on some jokes, which is kind of fine, but it was like... What is it? What are we saying? What does it mean? It's the thing that Si and I always come back to when we develop the films. How do you make it deeper? How do you make it, say something and still be funny and involving and dramatic?
Which is the best kind of film, one that can do plenty of things at the same time.
Yeah, and again, sort of Shaun of the Dead is a really good example to go back to. If that's a great zombie film, it's a great rom-com. But it is kind of about something as well. I do think that film's got a lot to say about growing up, turning 30, responsibilities. That's the kind of stuff that interests me.
It's interesting you bring it up.
Yeah,
because I was thinking
actually
about
gonna
it while I
ask
was
you.
watching. Yeah, I was thinking of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and Edgar Wright. It felt like The World's End.
There's
World's End
definite crossovers.
The friendship aspect of it, and the English aspect.
Yeah, and it was interesting because when I wrote the film, I was 32, 33 at the time, and the characters originally were going to be roughly that age. At the first meeting that Si and I had about the story, he just went, "This film is instantly funnier if they're 40." And it was that thing of going, "Oh yeah, that's such a good note," and he was like, Pete goes from being kind of funny to absolutely tragic if he's acting like this in his 40s, if he still hasn't sorted his act out, if he's still running away from all his problems.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's a bit of coming age on like Pete's part, definitely.
Yeah, we've described it as a coming of middle age
Yeah,
rather than a coming of age film.
but it's great. I like it, and it shows definitely how immaturity and like a refusal to catch up on where you are in life, it can really hinder your relationships with people. But it's done in kind of like a light-hearted way, where it's not miserable and like my life's gone to shit.
Hopefully it ends on an optimistic note. Although there has been some discussion about some people's interpretations of the ending are different, but it was
It was interesting because it was interesting because if you get really film studenty about it, which I can't help because I'm super pretentious. I was looking at it and taking the rock up onto Bodmin Moor. To Brown Willie, and he splits it at the end. And looking at the shot and how it was held, it was like you could infer so much from that shot alone with all the context of what you've seen previously. And it was more so, obviously the rock, I guess, is like symbolic of their friendship. But you have this thing where it's split in half. You see him break it, and whether you want to look at that as like a thing of there's the divide in age and maturity or that kind of thing. At the very end, you have the shot where the rocks are close together, but they're apart, and it kind of almost describes them, where it's like they're close together, I guess, in terms of the past they've had, but they're also separate because of the way that they live their lives. And it's, you can look into things like that about it, or you can just look at it as a movie. And
No, I love hearing stuff like that. And the other thing is they're going to leave it up there as well. So if the rock does symbolise their friendship and it's been split in two, it's also being left out on the moor. So does that could possibly infer that they're no longer friends, or it could infer that their friendship will endure forever. I don't have an answer for that. Well, I do, but I don't tell people what I think it means.
Oh,
It's super pretentious as well.
I like it. I'm all for numbing down and making all the expectations from a movie null. Just have your own experience.
For me, as long as it's not
David
preachy,
Lynch
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. And the other thing about when we were writing the film was when I made my first film, Weekend Retreat, I went to loads of festivals and saw lots and lots of great indie films, and I think people tend towards kind of relationship dramas or sort of friendship dramas, and that is what Brown Willie is. But for me, it was like putting it out on the moor is what makes it sort of cinematic, because you could easily tell a version of this story with two mates in a flat, basically on a Friday night, airing all their grievances to each other. But I was kind of like, there's a danger with, if it's just people in rooms complaining all the time, there's a danger that it's not cinematic for me. And it was like, actually, you have to put them out on the moor and in an extreme situation to really push them to their limits.
Interesting.
And then we had so much fun, because we quickly learned writing it that the key to it was you've got to get them in trouble, and then you've got to keep them in trouble. So we had just such a great time going, this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then they get poisoned, then one of them gets injured. And it was just so much fun trying to map their physical journey and then balancing that out with their kind of emotional journey.
That's pretty good. I honestly enjoyed very much that aspect of the heightened, even though it's realistic, it's still a heightened reality.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
That cinematic reality. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing it in the style that we're seeing it.
Yeah, totally.
I found it very compelling that it was. I think we all noticed the deliberate decision of making it within that certain style. It has some physical comedy as well and visual comedy. That's pretty subtle, but I liked a lot. That I don't see nowadays that much. Nowadays, it's you gotta look for independent movies if you want subtle comedy, visual comedy in your movies. They don't do that in Hollywood anymore. I don't know why.
And it feels like
they're stupid, maybe.
Some mainstream comedy, I really love comedies, but sometimes it feels like they just put a camera on someone funny and go, give me 20 versions of this line.
Yeah.
And they improvise 20 versions, and some are funny and some aren't funny, and then sort of 5 of them end up in the film. And I always sort of, that doesn't interest me as much. I'm kind of more interested in going, well, we work out what we think is the funniest version and try and stick with that and make it a bit more measured.
Great, a craft behind the thing.
Do you know what Hollywood film did do that with the just sticking a camera at someone and ad-libbing until they said something funny?
Ghostbusters. Oh
yes,
shit!
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. And it did it way too much in the respect that you had like Melissa McCarthy just like screaming really loudly throughout the entire movie. Half of what she said didn't even make any sense, and it's like, well, that's not what Ghostbusters is about, you know? Like it's not about ad-libbing and bad jokes like, come get your virginity out the drawer or whatever. It's more about like accurate, precise timing and dry humor.
Also it's hard in a film
you say
like
dry
that
humor because you're English.
but the cast of that film are all so talented, and they're all just brilliant improvisers. But it's exhausting improvising all day, every day, and it's not always going to be of a good quality. And I sort of felt for the cast a bit on that one.
Yeah.
They had a very violent, unmeasured backlash from the internet, which is our home, which is why we're putting this up on the internet, because we have no quality. But anyways, the internet is just like this cesspool can become this cesspool of very like high
you get a mix of everything basically.
Yeah, and it felt like the sort of backlash against that film was so sort of out of proportion with what the film actually was.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
There was definitely some good bits in that film and good moments, and it sort of felt like people were very much prejudging it before release.
Yeah, which is really not what you want to do with any movie. Actually,
No.
I think the best way to, if you really like cinema, you're not gonna go sit there just to complain and not like the movie. I think you're there to legitimately have a good experience. I hope. And before watching a movie, one needs to just like take it. I think the best way to watch it is just take it as it is. Take what's ever on the screen and
Yeah.
use your judgment, whatever you have from previous knowledge, and apply it on this film after you watch it, not during the film.
I think part of the reason as to why so many people kind of hated it, said they hated it way more than it actually is bad, the film. It's because they're kind of protective about the fact that it's Ghostbusters, and it's like this beloved 90s thing that everyone
80s.
loves. And what? Oh, 80s,
80s.
sorry. And then they're just grabbing it and kind of rebooting it in a not so good as it was fashion. And now people are kind of pissed off because it's no longer this untouchable thing.
Yeah, it's a cash grab, and that's why a lot of people were mad about it.
Yeah, you will get protective over that, but the good thing, I guess, at least about that is that obviously in a few years, it wasn't as great a film, as it could have been, and because of that, it won't be remembered as the definitive Ghostbusters movie. I don't feel like anyone needs to like say Ghostbusters 2016 versus Ghostbusters 1984 because it just know which one they're talking about from the context of how they're speaking about it. Yeah. So,
and it's that sort of subtle line between, because we're all kind of fans of stuff and we feel very protective of the things that we're fans of, but then it just gets blown out of proportion.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I don't want to start any sort of debate, but if you look at
no, we can do that. We do that here.
the reaction to The Last Jedi, and every time it gets mentioned online or on Twitter, the amount of sort of vitriol that kind of comes up from it, and you just sort of think, I just feel like that reaction is so out of sync with the film. Even if you didn't like it, you just go, you can't.
Yeah, no,
it just feels crazy out of proportion at the moment.
It's people. I know in real life, kind of a couple of these people. It's people who just are ignorant about it, and they just go with the opinions of other people. They copy the opinions out of reviewers or forums or whatever, and they're like, yeah, I guess that's true, and then they just go with it. That's a reality. Why not go with that one reality instead of accepting that it's rather subjective? I really enjoyed The Last Jedi, and I know people who really also enjoyed it, but then I know people who thought it was terrible for many reasons.
Well, I wouldn't say terrible, but as I've said in the previous episode, I wasn't too keen on it. I didn't like it too much.
And you, fair enough. I mean, I'm very much in the. I was quite a big fan of it, to be honest. But I get why some people don't like it. But it's that thing of, if the thing that I liked the most about it was it felt different. And
exactly.
You're going to get a Star Wars film every year until the world explodes now, because it will always make money. So it's got to change and it's got to evolve, and it's got
Otherwise,
we've got to get
it's going to
different
become
feeling
stale.
films. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we're gonna get sucked into a rabbit hole of Last Jedi debate.
This cast is the rabbit hole, so you can just go free. I want to talk. I want to say one more thing about.
Don't trash talk the KinoCast. This is a protected.
No, it's
property.
not. It's not an insult. You can look at it on the positive way. We are the rabbit hole. We embrace the fact that we are from the internet.
We are the rabbit hole. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just give my 2 cents on the whole thing about how it felt different. I wanted it to be more different. In fact, most people that didn't like the film are criticizing it for not being true Star Wars, as they say. But for me, it was better than Episode 7, definitely. And I wanted it to go even further in kind of trying new stuff, altering the formula and the structure, which is what I hope the next episode does. And I wasn't too happy with the film
it's not going to do it. I'm sorry.
I know it's not, but I still hope it does. But
Had this discussion.
I wasn't too happy because
Alejandro,
in the end it felt like another Star Wars. Yeah, I'm done.
we've had this discussion.
Patrick, don't
Okay,
worry.
we don't have to repeat. Please.
No, but he's telling
Okay.
Brett. Brett doesn't know.
Yeah.
Brett can watch the last episode where we talked to Red Letter Media's Jack Packard for 1.5 hours.
He's
Oh,
already
wow.
here. Don't ask him for more.
1 hour and a half.
And then-
not
and
one
then
and a half
from
hours.
man.
And then Brett can retweet the last episode that we did, and therefore we get more traction. So,
Right, deal. I'm in.
maybe he'll watch it and he'll really enjoy it. And maybe we'll send a bit of money Brett's way. But, at the end of the day,
Maybe these are all maybes. It's all hypothetical.
it's all
You can't-
which
It's
spitball.
yeah, because I don't have money.
Maybe, yeah,
I can send you Monopoly money if you want.
the cards are on the table. So
Anyways, to get more back on track on Brown
Front
Willy
fucking,
and
in
Yes.
front of the
process.
fucking lens.
Let's-
Next
Alvaro, shut up.
yeah,
Okay,
Alejandro wants to talk about Brown Willy. Please. Let
we
him
all
talk.
want to talk about Brown Willy.
I have a question. Is that
Okay,
name
I was gonna
actually,
ask a
a sexual pun?
Well, that is the name of the hill on Bodmin Moor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know I googled that, but I was also wondering if it.
He Googled Brown
Well,
Willy.
the title was a joke at first. When I pitched the sort of film to Si, because the pitch of the story was at the same time as pitching, and I'm going to put my own money into making it, and I kind of pitched it to Si as if I kind of expecting him to go, no, that's a terrible idea. We should, because we had been chasing funding. We got funding to make our first film, a little bit of funding, and then we chased funding for years to make another film. And I just got itchy feet and just went, I feel like I've got to make something else. So I came up with this idea for Brown Willy and was like, I'm just going to self-fund it and do it really, really low budget, and then try and make the money back. And I was expecting Si to talk me out of it, and Si went, yeah, I'll do that. That sounds good. And then I pitched in the story, and then I wrote in my notebook as a joke, and we call it Brown Willy. And then I said that to Si, and he laughed and went, yeah, imagine if we called it Brown Willy. And then there was a pause, and then we both sort of went, hey, we actually could just call it that.
Yeah.
I think it's because
Why not?
because if you're from Cornwall, you know what it means, and if you're not from Cornwall, it gets your attention. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well,
But the
sorry.
But what's
Yeah.
even better, and this didn't end up in the film, is the hill is called Brown Willy, but that comes from the Cornish, which is Bron Willet,
Oh.
and the Cornish translates as Hill of Swallows. So there's like all kinds of
Things
rude
going on.
jokes
Yeah,
you can make out of that.
It's,
So there
it's
just wasn't
rather
space in the
literary.
film.
What would have the alternative title to Brown Willy have been?
Gosh, there sort of wasn't one.
Black
That was the first and last one.
I love that idea. I love it. Just banking it. How would you pitch that to people if you were to chase funding for that? So I want to make a film. I want to call it Brown Willy.
But hear me out. Hear me out.
It's about
And-
two dudes.
For the most part, people think that the title is funny. We did have a couple of people when we were releasing it who sort of had got confused about what the film was about. And then because we released it into cinemas in Cornwall, and the first screening was was like an afternoon screening, and a Ramblers club had gone to watch it, expecting the film to be about hiking on the moor. So I got there for like the evening screening. There was loads of people going to that, and I got there and just as the audience were coming out, and it was a very elderly audience, and they looked very, very sort of shocked by what they'd just seen. But good on them, they sat through the whole thing.
No, I think I think your movie is a sort of movie. I mean, it's not something that like I went to see this one independent movie where like a woman would piss. It was just like Tarantino Belgian neo-western with like different perspectives and time events and all in the same day or something like that. And it had like really surreal moments in which it felt like if Tarantino went full overboard and like it would cut to like the memories, hallucinations. I don't know. It was just a hard cut in the middle of the action into like this woman, this silhouetted woman peeing on crucified men or something like that. And I mean, and I had old people in the cinema and they just walked out.
Yeah,
Because of
that's in our
course.
deleted scenes. That didn't make it to the cut of ours.
So the alternate name for Brown Willie would be
Black
Purple
Pity.
Taint.
I did like the pissing scene in Brown Willie. I thought that was very nice.
Yeah.
Was that water bottles?
Yeah, you don't get many pissing scenes in films, do you?
Yeah,
Not anymore now. I mean,
they're
almost
iconic.
now, I guess.
That was day one of filming. That was almost the first shot we filmed. Start as you mean to go on.
It's like a baptism with the liquid and all, the fluids. Sorry, Ali
Yeah.
wanted to make a question, and I've been cutting him off for the past.
That's good. Keep it that way.
15
I don't put a
minutes.
pissing.
Well, anyways, since we're now finally talking again about Brown Willie, and since we were talking before this, what?
What was that? You're getting cut off. I can't.
Oh.
Sorry,
I
wanna
can
say
I
hear
am. I don't know.
Andrew.
And-
What?
Are you pissing me off?
Alejandro.
No,
Can
I
you
think I think it's Patryk cutting off.
Oh
I think.
shit!
No, I wanted to stop him from talking.
Oh my god!
I was enjoying the conversation with that Alejandro.
We're gonna cut this in the editing room, right?
So remember what I told you about doing the KinoCast without Patryk just like an hour ago?
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
sound like a bad idea. Brett, do you want to be the substitute for Patryk?
We need one token English guy.
Good luck getting the 0 guests we've had so far since Jack.
Oh no.
And now
Anyways, my question was
I
basically.
feel like a marriage guidance counsellor. I feel like I'm going
God
to
damn it!
get you guys all to talk about your feelings.
It's
Oh,
a
they
great,
know my feelings.
it's a really fantastic outlet. Before we like move on to the questions, like
Yeah.
we feed so well off guests. It's fantastic to have them here because the three of us together have 0 chemistry and we have nothing in common to discuss. So whenever we get a guest, it's like
We got Jack Packer to talk about
It was-
transhumanism.
it was
Yeah.
what was it's like a what am I trying to say? Like a thing. It's
Not
Oh,
again,
yeah.
Patryk.
I don't know how
Last
to-
episode, he got stuck thinking about like how to formulate an idea for like 5-6 minutes. I was thinking,
it's like I don't know why I'm thinking like cathode. That's something completely different. A catalyst. It's like a catalyst for us. Like when we have a guest, it's like something that we can feed off and actually keep friends. So by all means,
no,
like
I think that's
no,
not
you're-
how you say. I think it's more like bouncing the
it's-
talent off another
it's
talent.
it's like a catalyst. Brett, you are a marriage counselor. That's thank you for coming here and solving our issues.
Well, that's
Can you-
fine.
We
I
don't
think
communicate
Alejandro wanted to ask something
Yeah.
for like an hour now.
I think Alejandro wanted to leave the call.
What? Oh no.
Go
So,
on, Alejandro.
when Patrick
All
says
I
he's
see.
pretentious, he's in lying. Anyways, since you were talking about a little bit about how it was shooting Brown Willie and developing the film, I wanted to ask you what would be the best and the worst day of making the movie, whether it be in the pre-production, post-production, or during the shooting.
The worst day of shooting was the afternoon of day 2, which was when we shot all of the dialogue scenes outside the pub towards the beginning of the film. Weirdly, that was the hardest thing to film, and that was all shot in a tiny little village called St. Breward. And the pub is like this really lovely little pub. And then the minute we started filming, the guy opposite started to physically knock his house down
What?
and cart it
Holy
away with
shit.
skips.
What is up
Shitloads
with
of
England?
horses came through. So that woman on the horse, that they just rode through when we were doing one of the scenes, and Sai just improvised as Pete go way at them on the horses, which ended up in the film. So much traffic went through. It was a nightmare. And we actually didn't think that we'd got it, and we had to finish on that day. And we felt pretty demoralised, and we were like, oh, we're going to have to go back and film it. And then when I got in the edit, it was the first thing I started cutting, and we just about had enough to cover the scene. So that was definitely the worst day. And then weirdly, and it was kind of that thing of going, well, if we can get through that, we can get through anything. So
Yeah.
that kind of galvanised the crew. The best, it's hard to sort of pick out one best day, because when you make a film, it's a series of sort of small achievements. just getting there and filming, because securing the locations was so stressful and so much work. So when we were there on the first day and we did the first take, it was that thing of going, okay, we're actually going to make this thing. Because it had been like about a year and a half, 18 months of planning and failed attempts by that point. And this happened on my first film as well, Weekend Retreat. The first time we screened it in front of an audience, we had an invited audience in to watch Brown Willie, and the lights went down and it started. And I can't sit during those screenings. I have to stand at the back of the room. And Cy was stood next to me, and just as the film started, I felt this nauseous wave of fear go up through my body, and I thought I was going to be sick, and I just panicked and went, oh my God, what have we made? And I turned to Cy. Cy is normally steady as a rock in these situations. And I turned to Cy, and Cy was white and sweating. And just as the film was starting, I sort of mouthed to him, what have we done? And he shook his head and went, I don't know. And then we just stood there for 10 minutes, and then the audience started laughing, and he relaxed and going, oh, thank God. we have made a film. Okay, cool. So that was perversely quite a bad moment and a good moment, because after that first screening you go, because the audience ultimately tell you what you've made.
Yeah.
You sort of go, okay, it is what I wanted it to be. So that was probably the best moment after that first screening.
I have a question. Obviously, you've directed 2 films now, and obviously, even with that experience, the indie productions and this being your second film, when you're out there directing and you've written the script, you're ultimately responsible for everything that happens to, like, the cast, the crew, the actual film itself, and your vision and how you wanted it to be. How much pressure do you feel when you're out there on Bodmin Moor and you're like, oh shit, we're actually making a film?
Well, if you've done your pre-production right, i.e. if you've cast the right people and you've got the right crew around you, you feel the pressure of time, certainly. So you go, we don't have enough time to make this film, so you've got to work quite fast. But I actually don't necessarily feel that much pressure when you're out there on the shoot, because you have to sort of compartmentalize your brain a bit and just go, you've got to enjoy it. Because if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to do your best work. So, you don't feel the immediate pressure then. You feel worse when you get to the edit and you start looking through the footage and you go, all these people have worked this hard on the film, so we have to make sure the film is good. And the general rule of thumb with making a feature film is the first cut of the film makes you want to die, because you watch it and go, oh, God, what is this? And then that's when the sort of work happens in the edit.
I heard that a bunch. Yeah,
I think it's the Coen brothers said they normally want to abandon their films when they watch a first cut. They watch them and go, oh God, what have we made? So you sort of go, well, if they feel that way and they're geniuses,
Yeah, it must make you feel a little bit more confident about it, definitely.
It makes you feel a little better about it. But yeah, you more feel the pressure in pre-production and post-production than you do on the shoot. You sort of the shoot, I mean, despite time, weather, despite everything being against us, this is the most fun I've ever had making a film, because it was a lovely bunch of people, and it was like so many people told us it wasn't possible, so many people told us we weren't gonna, because we were shooting exteriors in Cornwall in March, so it was short days of light. The weather is notoriously bad in Cornwall in the winter. And we got really lucky with the weather, and people were sort of laughing and going, it's impossible. And then every day you sort of go, we are achieving the impossible. Ha! So it kind of really you have a really nice atmosphere on set.
It's nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you did it and you proved them wrong. So it's like, again, it must add to that feeling of confidence, and, whatever you work on next, you're going to carry that with you. So,
yeah, you'd think.
Do either of you, Alvaro and Alejandro, have any questions before we move on to the next and probably closing topic?
Yeah, I do, I guess.
Ahead.
All right, thanks.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Alejandro.
One thing that was quite interesting, because you've described the whole process of Brown Willie now, how does it differ from shooting something like Weekend Retreat?
Well, Brown Willie was sort of harder and easier. Weekend Retreat had more characters, more actors, so the schedule was a lot more sort of confusing because the Weekend Retreat, the script was a split timeline as well, so it was a bit of a sort of, it messed with your head a bit, the scheduling of it. And Weekend Retreat was easier because you're shooting interiors, so sound is a lot easier and quicker to record when you're inside, and you can control the light more. But then simultaneously, Weekend Retreat was complicated because we were shooting in different rooms of one big house, and it was like we only had enough lights to light 1.5 rooms. So it was like a military operation, swapping lights between rooms. Whereas on Bob and Moore, it was like, it's sunny, let's film.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I sort of think what I'm sort of learning, having spoken to other filmmakers and worked on other people's films and stuff, is it kind of doesn't matter how much money you've got. And it doesn't matter what the films are just hard to make because they require a lot of people and a lot of time. And you sort of go, you listen to any director's commentary on any big film and they go, oh yeah, we didn't have enough time on that day. And you think, but you had so much money. But films just cost so much money. It's an army of people that work on them, especially those big, those top tier blockbusters. So I don't think there's such a thing as an easy shoot, is there?
Yeah.
I think they're all tricky in one way or another.
One day we're gonna know, I guess.
Oh, Alvaro, you wanted to ask something, didn't you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, bro.
Did I?
Yeah.
It seemed like it. Seemed keen.
Or we're just mumbling as always.
Yeah, kind of inspirations, main inspirations, and then things that really drove you into cinema at first and drive you nowadays that you've seen lately.
Yeah, we were going to go into that next. That was going to be the next topic.
Oh shit.
Well, segue.
Yeah.
Specifically, the inspirations for Brown Willie were Bob and Moore itself, because I'd always wanted to make a film there. But in terms of films and music, I didn't tell you about the music earlier. Sorry, I never answered that question.
Really?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, that links into this. So films, I really liked Nebraska, the Alexander Payne film. And there was a Paul Rudd, Emil Hirsch film that I saw a few years ago, Prince Avalanche, that I really liked, which was two guys painting lines on a road. So that was quite a big inspiration, and the music. So when I was writing the film, I was listening to the music that's ended up in the film, which is a band called Three Cane Whale, who are friends of ours, and all of that music is from their first 2 albums. And I was listening to that stuff while I was writing, and then I just contacted them and went, look, we've got no money, we're making this thing, can we work something out? And they were lovely and really generous and said, and we worked out a deal with their publishers, and they didn't want to read a script. They heard the idea for the film and went, that's fine, just show us an edit when it's done, and then let me use whatever tracks I wanted in whatever way. And then there was a slightly nerve-wracking moment where you showed them an assemble edit and go, if they don't like this, we haven't got any music. And they loved it. And it was kind of interesting for them to have their music sort of reappropriated for something else. But it was great, and it's great if you're going to make a film to have the music in existence before you shoot. So I could play bits of music while we were on set. So when we were doing some of the longer landscape shots...
Oh, yeah, the moody...
Yeah, we were playing the music on little speakers, and it was really helpful because it gets everybody in the sort of vibe. And actually, the tracks of music were physically written into the script. So I'd sort of done some of the edit in my head while I was writing.
Fun.
It's kind of a cool way of doing it.
The music was really cool, and it had this really sometimes fun, other times eerie or epic feel to it, as in it belonged on the anamorphic format, but at the same time it belonged on the black and white. It went hand in hand, and also with the setting of desolation and just this whole very personal feeling, but at the same time sentimental, subjective.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's so epic sounding. One of the nicest things we did was they're from Bristol, and we did a screening in Bristol, and then they played a few songs live afterwards, and it was like the most wonderful experience to sort of see some of the footage on screen, but see these 3 guys playing these various bizarre instruments in front of it. It's fantastic.
It had the mood, the eerie atmosphere, which was I always love in my music.
You said about the soundtrack being written into the script. The last time I heard about that actually being done in like professional practice was Deutschland '83, which is like a German TV show. I don't know if anyone's seen it.
No.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Of course, of course he's seen it.
Really fantastic series, love it. But the screenwriter for that, obviously, it was all music of the era because it's set in 1983. So the screenwriter actually had written the tracks into the script because she knew kind of thematically where they fit and what would be appropriate to listen to. And she was writing for music consumed by communists or socialists in East Germany, and for people in West Germany too, and what kind of music they listened to and were exposed to. And it's like, when you're in East Germany, you're listening to 99 Luftballons, and then when you're in West Germany, you're listening to 99 Red Balloons and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So stuff like Duran Duran, and which is a really cool way of doing it.
That's fun.
Hearing about that kind of control over a script is fantastic and inspiring in a way, because you don't get that control much.
No, and if it were a bigger film, you'd get into rights issues and all of that sort of business.
Can you put up a Rolling Stone song in one of your films, and you'd have an issue?
I think that film would be very short-lived. I think it would exist online for all of about 30 seconds. And
okay, makes sense.
The lawyers would be banging on the door.
So I had a question. Obviously, now that we're on like inspirations and that kind of stuff, which is more to do with. Well, firstly, kind of what films inspired you to get into filmmaking? What made you think that, hey, I want to do this? And secondly, obviously, now you've put films out there, you've got work out there, and in Cornwall at least, I wouldn't know outside of Cornwall, but in Cornwall at least, you're a known name, and so you've contributed to the independent scene, and therefore.
I totally just heard no name, and I realized he just said no name because it just kept going.
Well, so and my second question on latching onto that is like, do you have any kind of affinity for like British Indian, and what are your favorite films from that genre per se?
So stuff that. Well, I was a huge sort of Star Wars nerd growing up, and so that's probably sort of Star Wars, the Richard Donner Superman and Superman 2 were sort of big deals for me. We had 5 videos in my house growing up: Superman 2, Mary Poppins, and the 3 Star Wars films. So they're like my go-tos as a kid. And then I originally wanted to be an actor, and then I got into filmmaking. When I got to college, I did a media course and just started playing with cameras, and then made a film with my friends. But I got into stuff like sort of like lots and lots of cool horror films. Basically, I was a bit of a horror nut for a few years. Evil Dead 2 is my sort of go-to film, if nothing else.
I just watched it for the first time a couple of days ago.
Oh man, that film! I love that film.
It is very respectable for what it's doing. Personally, I binged the whole the trilogy, and personally I preferred the first one and the third, but the second I really respect what it was doing. I
caught it just at the right age at the right time, and I was just getting into filmmaking, and I think Evil Dead 2's got a lot of like quite clever camera tricks and things like that I was sort of obsessed with working out how they did. So I kind of got into that, and then just lots of stuff really. I don't believe in sort of being a cinema snob. I kind of consume everything.
Yeah, thank you. This is what we're all about here. This is the point of our whole existence. Because, like I said, otherwise, why are you here? Just to suffer? I mean, just to like.
It's just different. It's different films for different moods. So this week, the 2 films I've managed to watch this week, so I've been quite busy at the moment. I watched A Ghost Story, David Lowery's film with
I want to watch that.
Rooney Mara, which is fantastic.
I had a friend who said I was going to cry if I watched it.
It's pretty exceptional. And then I also watched the new Tomb Raider film with Alicia Vikander earlier on this week as well.
Oh, how was that?
It was all right. Everybody seemed to say it was awful. I sort of watched it and went, yeah, it's all right.
I wanted to ask you, what video game culture do you have on your shoulders? What rests?
What video game culture? I'm a bit of a lapsed gamer, so the only thing I find I don't have enough time to play the sort of big boy games these days. So the game that most captured me recently is the Friday the 13th game, which
that's a pretty good one.
I love that game.
Yeah.
So if it's been a hard day, if I've been trying to make stuff and then you get home, it's like go online and kick some ass on Friday the 13th for a couple of hours.
I'm guessing you've seen them all, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I was more of an Elm Street kid than a Friday the 13th. I was more of a Freddy than a Jason.
Probably because Friday the 13th is just a very cheap cash-in and blockbuster.
Yeah.
Just very much, I mean, not to take it down, but that's why people like it, because it's just very generic, and then you can just
It's
turn
more
off your
about the
mind
gore and the spectacle.
Well, there are some Friday the 13th movies that don't have gore. It's just the idea of Jason. I don't know the I don't know. Honestly, I really don't know why people watch them.
Well, the game is really good fun.
The game is fun, I imagine.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
But I think one of my favourite games, the one game that I got really obsessed with and then played again last year, I think, is Resident Evil 4. That's a big one for me.
Oh.
I really like that game.
It's a good game.
There's a remake for PC, I think, now.
And Street Fighter as well, obviously, Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
But everybody said, you got the ones that everyone's going to say, right? GoldenEye, Mario Kart, Street Fighter 2, your classics.
Well, that's if you're a nerd and you like really old games with back controls.
Yeah,
you can say that.
That'll be me then, apparently.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Alvaro, you're being too mean.
I think True Boys played the PS1 and the PS2, and then no, just kidding. But
you got to remember, I'm old as piss, man. I grew up pre PS1 era.
I know. I mean, my only problem is I tried the controller for Nintendo 64 lately, and it's just it's very
that is a
inappropriate.
wild controller. There's no doubt about it. That is
I would call
design.
I would call it promiscuous, borderline. It's very. I mean, it's awkward to use, and it's very weirdly shaped. And I mean, all my Freud alarm is going off while looking at it. It's yeah, go ahead.
Brett, do you have Discord?
No.
Oh, okay. Thank God, because I mean, if you had, I would have got stressed about having to do this on Discord the whole time, which would have been much better. But
no, what is it?
It's basically
like,
Skype, but 20 times better.
Yeah,
I guess.
Once you get past like the opening messages, like it'll open up, because the people who do like the PR for Discord and that kind of stuff, they're so out of touch.
Oh yeah.
And they open it up with shit like Leroy Jenkins and that kind of stuff, and it's like unpacking the dankest memes, and it's like I want to castrate myself. Like just watching it's terrible. I feel emasculated, and it's.
Is the definition of how do you do, fellow kids?
Basically.
I've never felt more old than I feel right now. It's almost a foreign language. Like, what?
Oh no.
Alexa, play Despacito.
Welcome to KinoCast. Well, we can talk about more of your I mean the stuff that came out when you were young. How old did you say you were?
Yes.
You were?
Pong. No, I'm joking.
How old are you?
I'm 36. Are you chatting me up?
I'm 19. I'm gonna. So
I'm 16.
I'm taking a wild guess here. So the Maltese Falcon came out like around when you were really young, right? I just watched that movie before watching Brown Willie, and I must say the dialogue in that movie has dated moments, but it's really snappy, and I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh, it's an incredible film. Amazing film.
it's got, I don't know, that this it's just punny and very witty, and it feels very thought out. And it makes the main character, even though he's kind of a douche, he's likable douche, and that's amazing writing for 1941, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that film has endured as a classic.
Yeah, that's right. Like Citizen Kane and Casablanca. I mean, I like those two better, I guess, but still, in any case.
Brett, do you remember when Citizen Kane came out?
Do you remember when TV was invented? No, I remember when the wheel was invented. That was a big day in the village.
Wow.
The chieftain came out and he said, "Ooga booga." The wheel.
And that was it. The world changed.
The world is changing. Yeah. That's. Do you watch any YouTube content?
Hardly any, to be honest.
You can say no without shame. We're just gonna harass you about your age.
Well, I do watch film reviews and the occasional thing, but honest trailers, stuff like that, but nothing major.
Do you watch?
They were nice content.
Red Letter Media.
Yes.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh my god.
Of course I do.
How
Who
jealousy
doesn't?
right now, Brett. How jealousy.
I think we asked the same thing to everyone. Oh no, because the two people who have come here are Red Letter Media.
Yeah.
So we, I don't know, they're just our generation's idols, I guess.
Well, I got hooked in probably around about the same time as everybody when The Phantom Menace
Yeah.
review
Oh,
came
yeah.
out, and I just thought it was such an exceptional bit of writing because it's funny and makes really great points about that film. And
Yeah.
It's really
My
hard to
brother got
find
into them when I
anyone
was waiting.
nowadays that is interested in film that hasn't seen or isn't a fan of Red Letter Media.
yeah, I mean, it's so
Yeah.
ubiquitous, isn't it? It's sort of everywhere. Didn't Max Landis go on there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Edit
think
this
so.
film?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did, and then they shat on him again. Well, he wasn't on the thing. They're just lovely. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of their opinions sometimes, but most of the times I really just, they educate me on what it means to just. They're like Jesus Christ. They watch the bad movie, so we don't have to.
Yeah,
the
they
box
endure
office, right?
it, so we don't have to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Could I have a humble flex moment?
Oh
No.
my god.
Not
I've
again.
I've still
Oh,
got
no.
Jack Packet on Discord.
Okay.
He's
Yeah,
not
me too.
He's not blocked me yet, so
Oh.
I don't know if he's blocked me because I
Feels-
always see him
feels
online,
pretty
so I'm
great.
guessing he did block me. I don't know.
probably is like, no, I don't want anything to do with these guys anymore. So I can't,
It was
So-
such an awkward conversation.
it was an awkward conversation. And Brett, can we say, like, just in terms of the three people we've talked to outside of ourselves ranked, you're the second.
Now you're gonna have
Yes.
favoritism in the podcast?
I'll take it.
So it's purely because Jack Packet, he was like so, again, awkward to talk to. It was like someone who reluctantly was there just out of manners. But
No, he was really nice to us. We just were like all over the place. I think we
really were. Like
we
now.
had to cut stuff out. Yeah, like now, but
He-
I mean,
I'm
Brett-
unsure
Brett-
if the
Brett is,
podcast is still being recorded or if we're just having a phone
Oh, no.
conversation now.
That's the idea.
that's the whole point about
Yeah.
this. That's the whole point about the podcast.
Alvaro, don't
That's
get
what it
mad.
is. No, it's not.
Most of-
It's not madness. It's
It is
joy.
madness. This
Most
is
of
all
this-
madness.
most of this will be trimmed for brevity because we have really gone off topic here.
Yeah.
But I mean,
you don't
just to
say.
give you- just to give you an example, when we talked to him, he actually typed in the side chat, "Guys, we really should be wrapping this up soon." And it was the single most embarrassing moment of my life.
Topics
So-
are for cowards.
Well, to get back on track, I guess I could make a
Tracks are for
question.
cowards.
Anyways, Brett, this is more of a general question,
Yes.
rather than about your films. What would you make artistically if you had all of the money in the world? This is something I will ask every single guest we have. Whether it be a movie, a book, music, etc. If you had like your perfect project, basically.
Purple taint.
Oh shit.
If I had all the money in the world, I would make a film. I don't know what I would make. I sort of feel like film. The restriction breeds creativity, so it would be
Yeah.
quite weird to have endless money to make something. I don't think I'd ever finish it, in all honesty, because if you could just keep spending money on it, you would just the thing would go on forever. So that was a terrible answer. I'm really sorry.
Oh no, that's absolutely fine.
Huge and mental,
answer.
and
You
like
passed the test.
I could make my own. Yeah, it would be
It was
something.
a terrible question, so it's fine.
Oh no, well, the idea is to see the interesting answers.
Alejandro has to specify every single time, like OCD. Oh yeah, this is a question I'm going to ask all of our guests from now on, like implying that we're going to have any guests ever again. So
Yeah,
he'll be asking us to us every single episode.
Patryk, this is why Alvaro and me talk about having you out of the podcast.
I wanna mention someone very special and dear to me in the past years, that was independent and rose to Hollywood like nothing, and
What?
that man's name is Denis Villeneuve, and
Oh.
I wanna hear your
man.
opinion. Yeah, the man, like the man who speaks a very French English, but the man, nevertheless.
I still think my favourite one of his films is Enemy, which is the one that hardly anybody seems to have seen.
I saw it. Have you guys seen it?
Nope.
Yeah,
Oh,
spoilers.
it's absolutely fantastic. Love
It
that
is.
film.
The ending.
Oh.
Don't say shit.
Hell of an
I mean,
ending.
I've seen Blade
Hell of
Runner
an
and
ending.
Arrival, and that's it.
Oh,
Oh, and Prisoners,
Arrival was so
which I
good.
also love.
Arrival was so brilliant, and
Oh yeah.
Blade
I
Runner was
cried.
fantastic. And
I
you
cry
just
with
go-
both of them.
It's kind of interesting because he's doing Dune next, and you sort of go,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm not that
Yeah.
interested in Dune, but if he's doing it, I'll go.
Yeah,
there.
exactly. You can imagine like the anamorphic and the amazing like Roger Deakins shots, and I'm already
Has he
having.
done any movie that is anything less than pretty good? I don't think so.
I haven't seen
No,
his
he's-
early work.
There's one that I haven't seen, but of all the ones that I've seen, he's pretty much 4 for 4, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think he's made 5 films. I've seen 4 of them, and they've all been pretty exceptional. So
I saw
not
his student film. He did this one student film. That's on YouTube, and I think it's like 5 minutes long, and it's basically this epileptic self-discovery journey. It's very trippy and very like in your face, but at the same time it works. It's not in your face annoying. It's more like in your face annoying for a reason. And I don't know, rated R for something, I think the name is. I don't remember.
oh, okay.
And you can
Yeah.
look it up on YouTube, and it's, I don't know, it's nice, and you can see something way more experimental than he's ever done in the films that are out there. Because the films that he has out there are films, like proper
Yeah, yeah.
stories with narratives that, even though little experimental, they are very understandable and not boring, very compelling, I would say. But this one is just weird, just very,
Oh.
film student-y. Like, okay, I'm gonna take the chance and make
I'll
something.
check that out.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, you mentioned that he was like cast off into Hollywood nothingness, almost like it was a negative thing. And I just like, even if it wasn't how it was meant, it's like, I think it's genuinely fantastic that people like Denis Villeneuve working in mainstream cinema,
Oh,
because
definitely.
it means that
Yeah.
there's more variety to what you see than compared to like the next MCU, DC.
Exactly. No,
movie.
yeah,
Exactly,
I
so-
don't. I didn't say that as a negative. I saw.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not a negative. It's a very much a positive. I mean, it's. We got to see a Blade Runner sequel. No offense to Ridley Scott, but he's a bit senile. I think he's senile. I don't.
I can't remember.
He
I can't
could
remember
be.
if this is true or not. I can't remember if this is true or not. I'm not sure if this is a legitimate article. I'll have to look it up afterwards. If it is, I'll link it in the description below. Or if it's like a Hard Times article. But I read that on the set of Blade Runner 2049, Denis Villeneuve told Ridley Scott to fuck off.
No, okay, it wasn't. I read that too. It
I
was
heard
like
I heard he just asked him. He said, "What's
Yeah.
your favourite film?" And he said 2001.
filmmakers.
Wow.
Filmmakers.
Okay.
Yeah, and he said, "How would you feel if Kubrick was watching you make a film?"
Exactly. Yeah.
In other words, leave.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like.
yeah.
And Ridley just had a laugh and walked away. Apparently.
I didn't read the full thing, but I read the headline. I was like, "Well, that's epic. That's fantastic." So I feel shot down now.
But I
I
think
mean-
any time a sort of interesting filmmaker, because you've got someone like Taika Waititi is sort of
Yeah.
great. I really
Yeah.
love his films, and then Thor Ragnarok, you sort of go, it's great to watch him make something on a huge scale, but remain true to what he makes.
Oh, yeah.
Keep his
Fantastic.
voice in there.
His literal voice in that character.
Yeah.
I had a very big laugh every time that character spoke. I wanted to make a revolution, but I didn't print out enough pamphlets. And he's like the nicest New Zealander.
Have you
and
seen?
He's like this big rock thing.
Have you seen What We Do in the Shadows?
Oh, I loved it.
Oh, yeah,
It's
great.
very funny. The vomit scenes.
I've not seen it yet, but I did see. I mentioned it the last time we talked, but I can't remember the name, the order of the name. I think it's like Eagle versus Shark or Shark versus Eagle.
Yeah. Eagle
And I
versus
really
Shark.
enjoyed that. And Brett, I'm not sure if you've seen Submarine, but to me it really felt like a New Zealand version of Submarine. In the way that
there's a definite
executed.
crossover, isn't there?
Yeah,
And
and it's
weirdly, they are quite. Taika Waititi and Richard Ayoade are quite similar in manner as well.
yeah.
Sort of both comedians and yeah.
I saw a lot of that in it, and I love Submarine, and I like Richard Ayoade, and I can't wait to see what he does next. If he is doing anything next, he seems to just be doing TV shows still. But yeah, and it just seemed really refreshing to see. Actually, there are more films out there like that you don't have to watch Amelie and alienate yourself to get a similar experience. You can watch something like Eagle versus Shark and have that, but kind of closer to home. It's not wildly different.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
You keep saying Eagle versus Shark, and I keep thinking of Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's not that.
It's the Taika Waititi story, right? The film.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's really good. So yeah, just before we wrap it up, does anyone else have any questions just about Brett? Or
What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Okay, good answer.
Great, and we'll end
the most
there.
boring podcast ever now.
I'm gonna kill myself while we're recording. Like you're gonna be able to listen to all the gory just as a statement.
When this episode goes out, it's going to be about 20 minutes long.
Literally, so much room. Literally, do it because it'll get us so many views. We will actually become famous of your tragedy. So
just say, okay. So if you can do us a favor, just say like a bunch of racial slurs when we say go, so we can like actually advertise this somehow.
I think
Cornish
over the course of this, I've probably said every word in the English language, so you could probably bodge it together to sound like Alexa or something. Like make up sentences.
That's actually a pretty good idea. We make and then we blackmail you, and then that's. Oof,
Seriously, you've got to blackmail somebody with a lot more money than what I've got, because I'm no use to you on that front.
Did you make a return on Brown Willie?
Well, that's a complicated question. We technically are in profit, so we've made back the money we invested in the film.
Yeah.
But everybody got paid to work on the film, but Sai and I. So
Oh.
even though we're in profit, we actually we now have to try and work out. We've spent 3 years of our life making the thing and putting it out there. So yeah, profit is in inverted commas, that's for sure.
And so yeah, I guess finally the question that I really wanted to ask Anton is, can we look forward to anything else by Brett Harvey in the future?
Yes, I'm shooting a film next year. I'm shooting my next feature film. Will be shooting in May of next year, hopefully. So I am spending the summer writing the script.
Well, I mean,
doing today.
Nobody's gonna listen to this, so I mean, between
I'll tell you everything.
between friends, what's this film about? Who do you want to be cast in it? And just kind of, can I be in it?
It is about
Harvey Weinstein.
Oh shit! We have Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey, all of the good
Sorry,
ones.
I just wanted to make a thumbnail and the title.
Oh, okay.
I'll play Harvey Weinstein. It's fine.
It is. It's called Cuckoo, and it's a father-daughter road trip film. So slightly different to what I made in the past. It's probably more of a drama than a comedy, but there'll still be comedic elements. But it's something slightly different this time. That's the plan currently. I'm still in the middle of writing it, so it could all change.
How long have you been playing around with that idea? Because I think I've heard that before. I'm not
yeah,
sure.
I might. Well, when did we do film school together?
That was 2016.
Yeah, that would have been around. Yeah, it's been on the cards for a couple of years now. We
Mm.
were going to make something else, and then we sort of changed the idea at the last minute. We're making it in conjunction with Falmouth University, so
Okay.
I am their filmmaker in residence for a year. There you go.
That title just like sparked a dark recess in my brain, and just all the horrible memories of film school came flooding back. So,
Which was the film that we made that year?
that was sorry, the film that we made. You left after like 3 days. You know, give us.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you know, that's the smart thing to do, isn't it?
Exactly, bail. It was The Narrator Must Die.
Oh yeah, that was quite good. I quite like that film.
It was pretty good. It was fantastic, and all the posters were up for ages. And Harry, who no one will know, but he was my friend who made the film or directed it and wrote it. He was very proud of that and kind of kept talking about it constantly.
Is Harry
As the
listening
poster-
to this right now?
He is if we
well,
mentioned it him.
I was gonna say I'll link it to him, but I won't tell him the content. And if he chooses to listen, that's fine. I could say anything about Harry right now.
Well, if Harry's listening, I thought that was a good film and he did a good job.
Oh, I'll relay that because he probably won't listen to this. He doesn't care about me at all. So.
Well,
What
in
a
which case, fuck Harry.
Yeah, what a fucking cunt. I was about to say it. I mean, I didn't need a pretext. Fuck you, Harry.
Harry, don't
I
pay
was
attention
actually-
to them. Still share the video, please.
If he listens to this, he will just crop the "fuck you, Harry" and post it as like a fucking MP3 file on his YouTube, and that will be it. That'll be a whole video for him.
And he'll probably get more views than us, so fuck you. You fucking cunt.
Ah, shit.
The
Sorry,
KinoCast throw shade.
Well,
You know
Oh yeah,
what?
no.
Fuck Harry. Yeah.
So
go
I
ahead.
I thought that was familiar, but yeah, I look forward to seeing more stuff from you.
yeah, well, stay in contact. You know, once the film is done and out in the world, happy to come back and talk to it. I'll send you a screen at that time as well.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Sounds good. One condition.
What?
Yes.
Next time you have a screening on the night of the day we were originally going to call, maybe tell us in advance.
What, next what? A what? A screening of the what? What?
Well, when we were originally planning this call, you had a screening, but you didn't tell us until we messaged you. You were
I
like,
know.
"Oh, sorry."
In my defence, I didn't know. It wasn't a screening of my film. It was something that I'd been invited to. That yeah, I didn't
Don't
realise I
worry,
was going
Patrick's
to till
another-
last minute.
It's okay.
I'm
Fuck
raw
Patrick.
about it.
He's
I'm-
another.
I'm-
He's
I'm-
another. One of
Jesus
those
Christ.
cunts. Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
I
Fuck's
read
sake.
the message. I read the message and I was heartbroken. I was like, he's bailed on us and he didn't even message us about it. So,
Brett
So
watched the
sad.
Jack Packard
It must
episode
be
and
an
said, "Oh, fuck
English thing.
this."
You must understand. I'm imagining. Brett.
how racist? How fucking dare you?
You confused our two names.
Well, it's been an honour to be on the last ever KinoCast. It sounds like you guys aren't ever going to speak to each other again.
We're gonna jump ship after this. So we've already sold out at a film festival. How can this get any worse?
My work here is done.
Yeah. By
Should
the way,
should we reach out to J.J. Abrams, promising that we're gonna like give his film a good review in a 20,000 member group, and then we actually trash it and call it corporate trash? And
Yeah, no. Do you know what? I'm
Can we
gonna
do
make this. I'm gonna make this 10 times worse. Yeah, you can watch Brett Harvey's film Brown Willie on Vimeo. It costs £3 to rent, £8 to buy. Also, support us on Patreon. It really helps. And if you can't support us on Patreon, give us money directly to PayPal, and we'll give you nothing in return.
Jesus
There we go.
fuck.
Well, you'll give
sold
them
out.
hours of rambly entertainment.
This has also been endorsed by Pepsi. So I'm.
we don't even have a Patreon.
You've been endorsed by Pepsi. It's like
You-
Coke, but worse.
It's
It's not worse.
I know at least one listener of the podcast who would disagree
I disagree with him.
with you. Well, he. Yeah, but you're a cunt.
It's
Brett-
not worse. It
Sorry.
tastes the same.
Brett, if we started a Patreon, would you donate to us?
Jesus fuck, mate.
What would I get for it?
Nothing. Would you donate to us?
The
Just hypothetical.
satisfaction.
Since we're spitballing out here, would you give us money?
Would I give you money?
Would you pay to listen to more KinoCast?
I would pay to listen to more KinoCasts. Yeah, why not?
Fantastic. YouTube
I'm
Premium.
not saying I
We're
would
on there.
pay much, but you know.
A loaf of bread is fine.
Would you
honestly.
pay? Would you pay attention?
Well, I probably put it on while I was doing something else.
That's how everyone listens to the podcast. It's disheartening. You
This
miss out
is-
on the fruit, on
this-
the visuals. What I stay up until 5 a.m. working
Patrick,
on.
you're giving me social anxiety, and this wasn't happening for the past 2 hours.
I'm gonna scream at you, Alvaro. Okay, so yeah, we should move on. So thank you for listening to the KinoCast. It's been wonderful. Never listen to us again. Please unsubscribe. That's it.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been really fun.
It
And
was,
nice
it
to
was
meet-
amazing, Brett.
Nice to
Thank
see you again, Patrick, and nice to meet
Nice
you
to
guys.
see you too. Yeah.
Thanks for bringing
So
the thoughts.
sorry for putting you through this.
You're a fantastic guest. Really, really fun and dynamic. Thank you.
This
Yeah.
has been the most fun I've had in ages. Thanks, boys.
He's gonna be like hitting up his brother, like, I just got talked to by this group of weirdos, and like, I don't know. I'm
had a
afraid.
blast.
To get my podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to be like, Si, the fucking things I've done for our film, mate.
I couldn't. I couldn't understand two of the cast members because they didn't speak English. Ironically, the one from Uruguay spoke the best English.
And you call us racist.
They're crazy. Okay, well, yeah, anyway, so yeah, to wrap it up, thank you very much, Brett. Thank you for dealing with us and for being so patient. Thank you for the great film that was Brown Willie.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Like, if I
Thanks for
can
having
have-
me.
If I can have those £3 back, please, I need to eat.
I can put £3 back in your Patreon. There you go.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, and until next time, thank you.
Cheers.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording. So,
Save here.
um,
Wow.